Good evening, everybody. I think this topic always better sex, better life. Facebook Live is one of my favorite segment. And today we have Jasmine with us. Again, we have Jasmine. I always love talking to her, always get a lot of good insight. And today our topic is female pleasure and sexual health. I think a lot of people it's a very good education for both women and men, because I think a lot of men also doesn't know about the female anatomy, the clitoris, female orgasm, and different type of orgasm that we have, vulva health. So I think this will be a very, very good education for both men and women. So Jasmine, let's say hi to our audience.
Hey everybody, and hello Yann. I am so excited for today's topic. I cannot tell you how excited I am. I was preparing last night and I'm like, yes, let's talk about it. It's my favorite topic.
Yeah. So I think if you audience have any questions, please feel free to actually type any message on our Facebook message area, or you can also DM us if you feel too shy to actually talk about it. But I think having me and Jasmine talk about females' pleasure is also to normalize this topic. For a lot of men, sex is always almost equivalent to orgasm, right? If they don't ejaculate, it's like almost they are not having sex. That's how they feel. But a lot of times we hear a lot of women are not able to orgasm, and some can't even orgasm their whole life. Okay, so I think again this is a topic that is not taught enough. That is why today's our topic is to educate everybody actually how women not only can achieve orgasm, but we can also achieve multiple orgasm. Okay, so today's topic, we talk a little bit on the basic, and a lot of people will ask, can actually women feel pleasure, or the pleasure is actually mostly a man thing?
Yeah, that's a really awesome question. I think I think we've always been told that, like, when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to sex, it is only for the men. But the thing about pleasure is that it has no gender. I think both men and women can experience pleasure. Women's pleasure is the same type of men in terms of, like, how pleasureful we can feel. Actually, we feel more pleasure too, and we'll get into that because we'll be talking about the clitoris and all of that. But yeah, basically anyone can experience pleasure. There are those who might not be able to experience pleasure due to shame, due to trauma, Um, and there are also those who don't necessarily find pleasure an important thing. And these are
Hmm.
those who are asexuals, where
Yeah,
pleasure is not priority, which is
yeah.
which is which is great. Like, that is what you like and that is who you are. But yes, women most definitely can feel pleasure, and I cannot stress that enough. It's important to know.
So I would think again, there is so much of sexual shame that, like you say, some women will think that pleasure is not important. Like, sex is only to pleasure my partner, or sex is just to satisfy the man, and they are unable to feel, or they feel shame to even feel the pleasure. So why do you think there's such a taboo surrounding this female pleasure?
I think there's the taboo because I think exactly what you said about, like, there's a lot of shame. I think growing up as a society, we it feels like a society's expectation or certain responsibility to take care of women, and thus the sexuality as well. So, women are seen as mothers, and therefore when it comes to women's sexuality, I feel, in my personal opinion, is that it's only related to reproduction, is not so much related to, like, the pleasure aspect. So the idea that only men are sexual and women aren't, like, that's a narrative that we always have. But that's an interesting question. I think there's a lot of, like, we are trying to protect women and women can't feel
Mm,
pleasure, and therefore let's not talk about it,
mm.
and men are the more pleasurable.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we talk about sex, it's always about safety, pregnancy. So
Yeah,
hardly any topic talking about pleasure, connection, love, right? Kind of thing.
exactly. It all goes back to reproduction. It all goes back to like period la. If it's not about period, it's about like reproduction. And then suddenly we will talk about pleasure. It's
All
like,
the
oh,
boring topic.
yeah, like cannot talk about it. Very taboo, very shy. It's
Yeah,
always
so
like
when
also, yeah, it's always like, how can we pleasure our partners, being tight and being like, all these different things for the partner. So, but it's never about our pleasure.
yeah, so I think also in the Asian kind of mindset is always like good girls don't want sex.
Exactly. Good girls don't touch themselves. Good girls don't open their leg. Good girls don't wear a certain way. Good girls cannot feel sexy, be sexy. Otherwise, you're something else. So
Yeah.
that's the thing.
So like being shamed a lot, right? Why are you wearing so sexy? There's like shame, things like that. Yeah. So so what are the usual misconception about female pleasure, you think?
Yeah, I feel like aside from, that women cannot feel pleasure, that there is something wrong with you if you do want to feel pleasure. I think another one is that, and this is something that I hear a lot and it's something that I struggle with as well, is that pleasure is unattainable. That pleasure
Mm,
is a lot of times it takes a long time for women to
mm,
have an orgasm, or, that it
mm.
is hard work. For men, it's very easy. They just go like, done. For women,
Yeah.
it's like a lot of hard work. There's a lot of like grounding, just all these different things, and then people just
Okay.
give up.
Okay.
But I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of understanding that we have towards female pleasure, which is why it's great that we're talking about this today. The lack of understanding, and a lot of times when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to sex, it's a lot based on men's pleasure instead of women's pleasure. So that's why we say it takes a long time, but we base pleasure around men. Um, and that, and this is a big one. And a female pleasure or female orgasm is just about penetration. So penetration is the only way for women to have an orgasm, which is actually not true. In reality, vaginal and penile sex isn't a reliable way for women to have orgasm. And there's
Mm, mm,
actually a study done on this as well. There was a study of 2,000 over like women, and they
mm,
found out that about 78% of women need clitoral stimulation for
mm,
orgasm or to enhance their orgasm, and just a
mm,
small few of women can have an
mm,
orgasm through vaginal penetration. So
mm.
there's a lot of misconception.
So I think we need to start from the very basic, like what are the female erogenous zone, right? Like basic basic anatomy. Maybe you want to describe a little bit on that?
Yeah, so the erogenous zones are basically parts of our bodies that is sensitive and causes sexual arousal. So for women, a lot of the times, and you may have more than erogenous zones, the one that I'm going to talk about, but for
Okay.
women, a lot of times it's probably our head. So like when someone touches our head a certain way, our lips,
Mm,
the one when
mm,
someone touches or kisses our lips, we get really like, oh, this tingly sensation. Our neck, the back of our neck, especially, our
mm,
breasts, our nipples, our
mm,
inner thighs,
mm,
the pubic bone. So just on top of like where our pubic hair lies, that's also very
mm, mm,
sensitive for women. And of course, our genitals, and there's also our
mm.
butt cheeks and inner wrist, earlobe. So these are places where, when someone touches us and someone kisses right there, we get really like excited and this tingly sensation comes. So yeah,
So this is a very good lesson for men, okay? It's not only the breast and the clitoris area. There's so many erogenous zone that you can explore. You can even, like Jasmine said, even the hair, you can start touching the hair, play with it and flirt with it, to put your woman in in the mood.
yeah, to start the engine lah, like because most of the time we go straight to the kissing, we go straight to the down there, but there's so many other places you can explore.
Yeah, and I think sometimes men just don't even put effort. I heard a lot of sex that it doesn't involve kissing at all. not much of touching, and just purely penetration, which is also
Yeah.
not fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, just knowing this erogenous zones and knowing that, it needs a bit of like, when it comes to arousal, you need some time to explore the body. And it's not that it's a chore. I think that's a lot of the times people think like, oh my God, it's like so mafan, have to do all this, all that. But the thing is, it's like that's how you get in the mood, you set the mood right there. And it's
Yeah.
just a great way to sort of be in a moment.
Yeah, so I agree. It's the process. So it's like you're exploring each other, touching each other. That's how you feel connected, right? Like
Right.
you feel how the touch sensation are. So actually, what is your favorite erogenous zone?
This is a good one. So like my favorite erogenous zones is actually like behind my neck or on the side of my neck. So
Oh,
when
okay.
someone goes closer to it, even if they're just breathing, it gives me like goosebumps, and it's exciting for me. Yeah.
Okay, so I am the opposite. Me also
Oh,
like super sensitive on my ears. I also get goosebumps, but it doesn't give me pleasure. It gives me like it's too sensitive.
right.
Like what you say. Like people just breathing behind my ears. I already get goosebumps, but I don't get excited. I just get very like a bit.
Yeah, good.
And I feel like my erogenous zone changes according to my menstrual cycle as well.
Mm.
So sometimes my breast is very sensitive. Sometimes my breast is not as sensitive. So I think this is a lot to do with communication. Like what
Yes.
you want your partner to do, you need to communicate as well.
Yeah, and I like what you said about. I like how you highlighted like different parts of your cycle throughout the month. It changes. Like sometimes I remember oh, last time we did this and it worked, and I'm
Yeah,
able to have an orgasm. But like now we do it again. It's just actually it annoys me. Can
yeah,
we do
yeah,
something else? So that's also really important to highlight different parts of the month. Throughout the month, your
yeah.
different cycles, different erogenous zones.
Yeah. And also I think that also gives excitement to the partner, right? Like it doesn't become autopilot. I think if it's
Mm.
always the same thing that you're doing and you think that that is the same thing that it will give her pleasure, then become like autopilot, right? You're doing the same thing all the time. So when because of her erogenous zone changes according to the menstrual cycle, you actually needs to communicate. You need to be connected. You need to see how she reacts when you touch the person. That is how you stay present and connected rather than just autopilot.
And
Just
also
do.
at the same time, like for women as well, like sometimes our partners don't know which part of our bodies feel good, so we have to also help them and communicate with them. Actually, why don't you touch me here? Actually, why don't like, oh, that feels good right there, so we kind of like help each other.
But
So
I think, but I think this is also one of the challenge for women, right? Like
definitely.
unable to tell your partner what you want. A
Right.
lot of women you can see they're so chatty in a normal situation, but when it comes to in the bed, they are unable to express themselves. Do you think
Yeah.
that is common?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of the times as women, we just feel like we don't want to be a know-it-all, because I think we're being conditioned um, to probably believe that men are more sexual, therefore they know what they're doing, and that we shouldn't ask for a lot because we don't want to hurt the ego. Like this is the main one that everyone always tells me, right? Like I don't want to hurt the ego. Later they get angry at me how. But the thing is, I
Mm,
feel like when it comes to pleasure, it's about us owning our pleasure, to us being empowered enough to have pleasure. So we have to come from a space where I'm actually doing this for myself, and I'm also helping my partner too, because I think as a partner of myself, like I would want to know what makes my partner feel good, and if she
and
were to help me, that would
yeah,
be great, because
so
otherwise
I
I'm just shooting bullets in a blank
yeah,
space.
and and I think a lot of women has a misconception that men's only wants to orgasm or release or ejaculate, but the greatest satisfaction for a lot of men is able to give multiple orgasm to a woman, right? That is like an ego stroke to them. So
Yes.
woman, you need to be able to surrender and enjoy yourself in order to give them the ultimate satisfaction, give your partner the ultimate
Yeah.
satisfaction.
And sometimes it's not just the orgasm too. It's just like they just want to know that you actually feel good. Because if,
Yes.
if they're doing something and you don't feel good the whole time, you know, it will feel really, really bad on them too. Because I'm like, oh, I wish I knew what you want. And also, it saved them time because
Sure.
sometimes they're doing something, they don't even know if they're doing the right thing. So, but if you were to help them, because again, their aim is to help you have an orgasm. But if you're not doing the right thing, then they're just, exerting energy doing something that is not going to be helpful for them. So yeah, it's
Okay.
very important to tell them.
So can you give us some example? Because a lot of women are unable to speak out, right? Like
Yep.
just to tell the partner what to do. So can you tell us certain phrase that can be used that seems more subtle but like not demanding or bossing the guy around?
Yeah. So like some of the things that I personally like to do is, oh, if you touch me here, I'm going to go crazy.
Oh,
Like
okay.
maybe touch me here, like I'm gonna go crazy. Or remember the last time we did this? Oh my god, I
Oh,
really love that.
oh,
Or
okay.
sometimes you don't even have, yeah, sometimes you don't even have to say anything. You just like take their hand and just
Okay.
like put it where you want it to be. Or even if they are sort of like touching you a certain way and maybe it's too harsh or it's too
Mm,
like sensitive and everything like that, you just like take their hand and just
mm,
kind of like put it how you like,
mm,
or you
mm,
just touch
mm.
yourself and like just show them how you like it to be and go like, if you
So
do this, I'm gonna go crazy.
So girls, you all need to learn. You see how Jasmine did it so subtly,
Yeah.
and and because sometimes maybe a lot of people doesn't know, right? So from pornography, you don't get good examples as well. So yeah, so now let's go to the basic anatomy, which is the clitoris. So I think a lot of people might not even know where the clitoris is, and maybe a lot of women didn't know clitoris is like double the pleasure of what the penis has, right? Because the nerve ending is double compared to the man's penis. Okay,
Yeah.
so Jasmine, you want to talk a little bit about clitoris?
Yeah, so the clitoris, it's so interesting because they always say that the clitoris is it real? Is it actually there? So the clitoris essentially is actually located in your vulva. So it's just above your pee hole and just above your vagina, your vaginal opening. So I don't have a picture of that, but I do have a picture of how the clitoris looks like. And the clitoris essentially it looks like this. So this is the person holding a 3D model of the clitoris. So what we can see, like when we look at our bodies, the only thing we can see is actually the head of the clitoris. But in fact, it actually has a whole body inside our body. So it has like this, these arms and the legs and everything. So it's actually a whole system that's located inside. I heard someone said that the clitoris is kind of like an iceberg. The only thing you see is like the head, but it's actually like a full thing underneath the water, which I love that analogy. And so, just like what you said, Yan, that the clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings, which is double the nerve endings than that of a penis. And the sole purpose of a clitoris is just for pleasure. It has
Pleasure.
no
Wow.
other function. It's only for pleasure, which is why when a lot of times when we are, when we're younger, when we're kind of experimenting and touching ourselves, we tend to go straight to our genitals. And what we're actually rubbing is actually the clitoris. And that is the part that makes it feel good. And because it's 8,000 nerve endings, it's actually super sensitive. So for men, if their maximum amount of pleasure is here, for women we can go further because it's like double the amount, which is fantastic. And it's made out of so many things. On the clitoris itself, it's made up of erectile tissue, muscles, and also nerve endings. And it can expand if we are aroused. The clitoris can actually expand from 50% up to 300%. And
Wow.
it just like goes crazy big. And
Wow.
the thing is, like how we always know that men can have erections, right? But
Yeah.
women can have erections too, and the
Wow.
erection comes from our clitoris.
Oh,
So yeah, and I actually took a pic. I did I printed a picture.
okay.
This is how our clitoris will look like in different stages. So you can see here. So this is in
Mm,
its normal state. So
mm,
everything is like really relaxed.
mm, mm,
So this is our clitoris. This is our P
mm,
urethra sponge, and this is
mm,
our perineal sponge. I think
mm,
this is our vagina. And then if
mm,
we are slowly getting aroused, our clitoris and different parts of our sponges would also have an
mm,
erection. So
mm.
it becomes big, and then it becomes super, super big, which is
Wow.
why if we take a picture of ourselves before and after orgasm or during orgasm, having arousal, take a picture of our vulva, and you will see that it actually expands.
Oh, okay. Wow, wow, wow. That's really interesting. So much of nerve ending there. We want to ask our audience now, how many of you all actually do clitoris stimulation? So I think maybe a lot of couple are not even touching it. So how are you going to touch it? And a lot of times I would think having a good lubricants is really, really important, because I mean, this area is so sensitive. Men's hands are so rough, so it will be really great if you have a good quality of lubricants to use for clitoris stimulation. Okay, so just now we are talking about, so much of pleasure from clitoris. If people who cannot feel pleasure, is there something wrong with them, or why are they not able to feel pleasure?
I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I think, it's a lot to do with self exploration. It's a lot to do with getting acquainted with our bodies. And also, if if you grew up in a conservative household, such as, like especially for a lot of us here in Malaysia, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of
Yeah.
insecurity when it comes to, surrounding our bodies, let alone our pleasure. Even just like, how we dress is already an issue. If we act a certain way, just like, um, you know, so like there's a lot of that shame and there's a lot of that insecurity. It surrounds our bodies, right? So I feel like we need to do a lot of unlearning and relearning to
Mm,
understand our bodies and to understand that like our bodies, there's no shame surrounding our body. Our body is our body, and how we sort of explore with it, how we sort of touch it, it's important for us to get to know our body. So I
mhm.
think there's a lot of that. I remembered having someone come up to me and go like, even after I'm married, I still can't have an orgasm. I still feel shame. A lot of people think that the moment they get married, everything is okay, because all this while we've been told like nobody can ever touch you until you're married, and then after you're married, you find it difficult
Yeah.
because of all the years of shame.
Especially nowadays, when we are getting married at a later stage, right? So
Mm.
imagine last time sex before marriage, but you're getting married at 16, 18. Of course, the lifespan previously are also short, like 40 years old, 50 years old people, the lifespan is short. But now people get married when they're even in their 40s, right? So
Mm.
imagine if you only have sex after that, you might have a lot of challenges, because your hormone is not as high as it used to be when you are in your teenage time, or so I think there will be a lot of challenges. And also pornography, no, the old days, I think maybe 20 over years old, you get to watch a VCR, or maybe watch Playboy, read Playboy magazine kind of thing. But now, at a very young age, people are being exposed to pornography and being programmed in a way, uh, unhealthily, right? So I would think nowadays there are more and more couple, or even people who have challenges with uh, sexual desire, or all
Yeah,
sorts of sexual
I think
challenges.
especially with pornography. I mean, if you get exposed to pornography and you kind of don't know that that's not actually real sex, it's actually all about
Yes,
acting and everything,
yes,
you may tend to think that, oh, in order for me to achieve pleasure, I need to do this, I need to do that. So
yeah.
I think that's a lot of the times too. that, you know, as women, we tend to think of how we look like. So like, because we watch so much porn, it's like, but then when we have sex, how do I look like? Should I look nice? Should I moan a certain way? Should I be a certain way? And this is an act what we call spectatoring. So you actually, as a spectator, you get out of your body and you actually look to yourself. And so you're so into how you look like that you're not really in the moment. And
Yeah.
therefore pleasure is also hard to achieve.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, like what you say, is like acting, right? Because of when you watch pornography, everybody looks so good in each angle, right? But you must think,
Right.
when you look, imagine if someone who is naked and making love, it usually doesn't look too good unless the
No.
person, right? Usually the position are awkward and things like that. It might not look so good like what you saw in the movie. So it might give you a lot of unrealistic expectation as well.
Exactly.
So okay, then I have seen survey that a lot of women who are unable to orgasm, and also a percentage of women who can only orgasm once in 3 to 4 intercourse, and hardly any woman can have orgasm each time they have intercourse. And of course, if we are talking about multiple orgasm, that will be even rare, right? More rare. So what is this orgasm gaps? Why is there this orgasm gap?
Yeah, so basically an orgasm gap, the term orgasm gap is to describe disparity or inequality of orgasms between couples. And so that's they actually did a study, they actually did a research of 52,000 over American adults just to
Mm,
find out what is the orgasm like between couples. And they did this study with everybody, with straight couples, gay, lesbian, you know, bisexual couples, so many different people. And what they found out is that there's a huge difference when it comes to orgasm during sex between heterosexual male and heterosexual female. And they found out that 95% of straight men would always orgasm in during sex versus 65% of straight women would orgasm. So there's a big gap, and they're trying to understand why this happened, right? And so a lot of times what they found out is that, you know, we don't really understand, you know, our own pleasure as women, or, you know, because of society, because of pornography, there's this understanding that women can't feel pleasure, therefore it's not important for them. There's even a difference between lesbian women and straight women. Lesbian women, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's about 80% of lesbian women would always orgasm versus against
mm,
65%. And you know, it's not just the orgasm gap doesn't only happen between partners. They also realize there's another study that sees that there is also a gap between partnered sex, when you have sex together with your partner, and versus when you have sex alone, which is masturbation. And they realize that 39% of women can have orgasm when they masturbate versus 6% of women during partner sex. So like they also see that,
God,
you know,
that's
straight
a
men,
huge,
straight
huge
women,
gap.
yeah, and also during like when you have sex with a partner, when you have sex alone, very different. So that is the orgasm gap. So when I found out about this, I was like, oh my goodness, we need to do something about this. Women, we need to have orgasms.
Not only that, we have inequality in terms of pay, now we have inequality in terms of orgasm.
Exactly,
Okay,
that's the
okay.
orgasm gap.
So why do you think actually it takes such a, why is it so hard for a woman to orgasm, right? If you're looking at the gap.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, there are a lot of things. I think a main one is what we were talking about just now, which is the shame, the trauma that we went through, the insecurities within our bodies, that we're not allowed to touch our bodies, you know, dress it up a certain way. And maybe there's also a lot to do with us not understanding our own bodies and our own pleasures enough. Perhaps we feel that it's tough for us to tell our partners, like you were talking about just now. You know, it's so tough for some people to tell their partners because we don't want to hurt their feelings. I mean, that's also an issue. Or that maybe we've made to believe that our orgasm is a chore, that we take a long time. And because when we see porn, it's so easy. The man and the woman come at the same time, counting done. But then when we take a longer time, it's just like, oh, there's something wrong with my body. Maybe
It's
we're
so
worried about a lot of
so
things.
unrealistic for a man and woman to come at the same time. Is actually very unrealistic.
Yeah, I read somewhere that arousal times for both men and women are very, very different. So for
Okay.
women, it takes about, I think like 7 to 20 minutes, arousal. And it's just like a full, going through getting aroused, getting excited and everything like that. For men, it takes about, an average of 2 minutes or to 5 minutes, something like that. So,
2 minutes.
yeah,
So it's the switch, like just switch
yeah.
on.
Because it's important, right? Because like when we get aroused, like there's so many different parts of our bodies that it's activated. So not only our clitoris, but actually our urethral sponge get activated, our perineal sponge get activated, different parts. That's why we have 8,000 nerve endings, y'all, because it needs to activate. So it's not that we take a long time, it's just that is just how our body works. So when we base orgasm or arousal on women, that is actually like, yeah, it's not enough time. 2 minutes is not enough time for us.
I would also think it's also the state of mind, right? I think women, when we wanted to have sex, it is also like taking care of ourselves. Like you go and shower, you smells nice, you feel like self-care before you go into sex, right? I don't
Correct.
think women, after doing all your chores, you then your husband is waiting for you and you're like doing all your chores and you come in, you can be turned on. I think if men, you want your wife or your partner to be turned on, you should do all the chores and ask her to, okay, now you can go shower and have your self-care time. Then I would think she will be more ready. I don't think after cleaning the throwing the garbage or cleaning the kitchen and coming in, you feel sexy, right? I don't think so.
Yeah, you need
The
to
state of mind.
help each other to be in the right state of mind.
Yeah,
Basically.
yeah. And of course, again, I think there are also a lot of body shame. Like women are so trapped into the perfect body. And I realize there's no perfect body. People who are a bit too slim, they will think that, oh, my boobs are not big enough, my butt is not perky enough. Woman who is a bit more curvy, they will think that, oh, I am a bit too fat, or I have this area. So they are always concerned like how I look, or
Mm.
how my face look, or how my body looks. So I think there's so much shame. I don't think men even care about how they look, or I wouldn't say they don't care. It's like even they are a bit overweight, they still think they are sexy.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this in previous episodes about like when it comes to insecurity, a lot of times the difference between men and women is that for women, the insecurity comes from how we look, how our body looks, and everything. Just exactly what you said. With men, it's not so much of how they look; it's actually their performance. Can I stay hard longer? Can I do this longer? And I mean, to be honest, whenever I go into the state of like, oh, how does my body look and everything, at the end of the day, with my partner, they're just happy that they see a naked person. Their partner is naked in front of them and so sexy, and they just get excited. They don't even care about all the other things. Um,
So I think being confident and able to stay present and enjoy yourself is so much more important compared to how your body looks like, right? So I think we really need to get rid of this body shame thing, like what a perfect body should looks like. I think all bodies is sexy in their own. And if you look at, I don't know if you have watched this sex and the goop episode in Netflix. There's this lady who is the lady who is actually a bit more big size, but she was like naked looking at herself in the mirror, and she's like so comfortable with herself, right? Sometimes people, especially sometimes you see models, they always criticize themselves so much, like they become so insecure about their body. Although they are so they are so slim and look so good already, but they are still not comfortable in their own body. But I saw that lady, when she look at the mirror, I can see that she's so comfortable in her own body. I think that is really important.
Yeah, it
when it comes.
definitely takes it takes a lot of sort of it I don't I don't think it happens easily overnight. I
Yeah.
think it's a lot to do with like years of trying to tell yourself that, you know, this is how I am, this is my body. And it also helps that we live in a generation right now, at a time right now, where there's representation for all types of bodies, you know,
Mhm.
on social media and in the media in general. Because back in the day, I think there's only one type of body, and now everyone is saying like, no, there are actually multiple types. And even people like Rihanna, for example, she has a
Yeah.
lingerie line, and she does you know, all these like shows with her lingerie. She doesn't only have one type of body size. She has different types of bodies, and even her dances are different types of shapes and sizes, which I think is fantastic. So I think it also helps that as a society we are moving towards accepting different types of bodies. But definitely it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of like learning to love myself. But
I think it really takes time to learn to accept yourself for who you are. I think it also takes a lot of wisdom and also age. I think as I age, I also learn to accept myself better compared to when I was younger. So I criticize myself less, and 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 people say, oh, you didn't lose enough weight. I say, at my age, every year if I don't gain weight, it's a bonus already. Like, so it's like never enough. You When it comes to weight loss, it's like never enough. People tend to say, okay, it's better to lose another 2 kilos, 5 kilos, kind of thing. But learning to accept yourself is really important. And I'm not saying that it's not healthy to lose weight. It's also healthy to lose weight, but you need to lose weight for the right reason, right?
correct.
You want to lose weight because you want to be healthier, you want to be stronger, and not because of certain what
Unhealthy
certain
other reasons, love.
yes. And you can
Yeah.
see this will also happen for people who are very skinny. They keep
Yeah,
on wanting to lose weight for the wrong reason.
correct.
So yeah, acceptance is really important. Okay, so what can we do to overcome these blockages so that we can feel pleasure instead of always being distracted with all this trauma or yeah unrealistic expectation?
Yeah, I think as a like as a starter, it's um just to be part of conversations such as these, which is why it's so important that we're having this conversation, to just really, you know, open our minds and just to really talk about this openly. And even if, you know, you guys watching out here right now, even if you're not part of like the talking with me and Yan, the fact that you are actually sitting here and watching the whole thing is in itself like an unlearning thing. I think we need to unlearn all that we've been taught ever since we were young. And, you know, also to acknowledge to not be too hard on ourselves,
Mm,
because, you know, I'm like in my 30s, so like it took me 30 over years to you know, have all this in my head. So me
mm,
unlearning this is 30 over years of unlearning all that we've been taught. So to just be kind to yourself if you feel all this like blockages and everything. I think another thing to know is that when it comes to sex and our pleasure, build up is really important. And that's something to know. You can't just go straight in and go straight to the clitoris and go straight to touching ourselves. We need some sort of like foreplay, and foreplay doesn't only have to happen in the bedroom, right? Like it can happen way before the bedroom, just by texting your partner or just getting
yes,
yourself psyched up and hyped up. But that's like with a partner, but within yourself also, again, the shame, the trauma. So just really sort of get to know yourself again, get to know your body and how it looks like, and just slowly build up that confidence. I think we lose our confidence when we're younger because of all the things that we've been taught, and then suddenly now we need to be able to explore our bodies, especially after marriage. Like it doesn't make sense. So it's just getting to know your body with yourself, with your partner. Yeah, self exploration.
so I always think like in the Asian community, it's like your parents don't allow you to date, right? Like no dating when you're school and blah blah blah. And once you hit 30, why are you not married? Kind of thing, right?
Right, right. And then
But
after that,
no,
once you yeah, and then once you're married, it's like, why don't you give me kids? Why can't you, like, you know? And then suddenly it's like, or suddenly give like all this like sex tips and everything, and you're just like, whoa, 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 all this while I've been taught like this is wrong. And so it's just really like conflicting messages that we get, especially as adults, especially after we're married. So it's just really being gentle with yourself in that aspect as well, and also be present when you are in the moment. Don't think so, don't think, I mean, it's very easy to say don't think lah how you look, like you look nice, why, and everything like that, but just really enjoy and just really ask for what I think the way we can fully enjoy ourselves and sex is when we feel safe.
Mm.
When we feel safe, when we feel
Mm.
comfortable with our partner. So if that is something that you don't have with your partner, that is something that, you know, you need to sit down with your partner and go like, what are the things that will make you feel safe? Maybe it could be words of affirmation, you know, that actually you look really nice, you look really pretty. So just really build up that that sort of confidence within yourself. And again, it takes time, it takes practice, but it's not impossible.
And do you think in these modern societies, that because there are so many women who are actually working, right? So sometimes we are stuck in the masculine energy, right? Like we are controlling, demanding, and things like that. And when it comes to bedroom, they are unable to surrender. They are unable to switch back to the feminine side. Do you think this is also a common problem today?
Yeah, it could also be. I mean, I would see that as being possible. I think um, so that's why it's kind of like important once you kind of go back is to sort of remove all of the thing from, you know, your outside life, and when you come into your personal space, you know, just have a different mindset. I think so that's why some people prefer to sort of, before they even, after work, before they even step into the house, they prefer to have a moment to themselves, to kind of be in the zone, be in the mood, and then sort of switch the roles to like the feminine, or like, you know, all of that. But I definitely think that also, like, as women, we are sensual and sexual being, and
Mm,
to know that and to give yourself the permission to be sensual and sexual is also really important.
mm.
But yeah.
But I think I always believe in scheduled sex. Like if you are
Mm,
scheduling on Friday night and you know you are going to send your kids to your parents and things like that, so that you can be also really uh, how to say, being ready to be a lover again. Because sometimes when you
mm,
parent your kids so much, and you tend to parent your husband as well, or you're so bossy at work, and you tend to boss your husband as well. So it's like, because women are wearing different hats nowadays. And I think when you schedule, you know that how can you prepare yourself to be a lover on that particular moment, right? Then
yeah,
I always believe in scheduling sex is pretty good. And
yeah, being in the right
anticipation,
mindset,
right?
anticipation, desire.
Anticipation, and like your husband know that, wow, tonight I'm getting lucky, and he will be so nice to you the whole day, kind of thing. So like you're going to flirt with each other. The anticipation will also create a lot of desire, I would say.
Yeah, agreed.
So I think there are also a lot of frequent asked questions, like, what happens to our body when we go through an orgasm for female? Yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to, you know, our body going through like arousal and, you know, orgasm, there's actually this study, or this model, they call it model, called sexual response cycle, is what our bodies will go through as we prepare to have an orgasm. So I actually like printed this. So
So,
the model, there are two types of models, but this is one that is four levels. So you can see here,
okay,
this is the excitement, this is the
okay.
plateau, orgasm, and resolution. So basically, like, it's like four steps. So in the first
Cool.
step, when we're in excitement, we get excited. You know, like
Mm,
there's desire, there's excitement, and then suddenly we feel like our face is a bit warm because we're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
okay.
We feel a bit of like our clitoris, our genitals are throbbing. And again,
Mm,
like this particular model, it's the same for men and women, or penis owners and vulva owners, it's the same. So for women especially, there's desire, there's excitement, our nipples get a bit hard, we get a bit turned on. And then there's plateau. So all that we felt in stage 1 is actually
Mm.
intensified. So like our
Mm.
breathing gets a bit heavier, gets a bit harder. Our nipples are erected. We feel our
Mm.
genitals throbbing even more, and we just really want to receive. It's when our body is ready to receive pleasure. And then so just like really like plateau is like it's like so much that it can't go any further. And then we go through orgasm, and orgasm is the release of all of the sexual energy, all the sexual tension that you've built up. And then you go have an orgasm, and then it's just really fast. After an orgasm, straight away you go to resolution, which is stage 4. And it's where everything goes back to normal. Our clitoris, our vulva, from being puffy, like we were talking about just now, the clitoris can go from 50% to 300% engorgement.
Wow.
Yeah, slowly goes back to normal. Our breathing slowly goes back to normal. Our face slowly, like it's not warm anymore. So these are the 4 stages. And here's what's really important to know is that the stages of this cycle is not linear. Meaning, like, it's not like when we are in stage 1, we go to stage 2, we go to stage 3 and 4. Sometimes we're in stage 1, we go to stage 2, and then our brain think of something else, and then we go back to stage 1. Okay, and then we're in stage. So like, so a lot of the times we go like, oh, but I'm already in the second stage. How come I cannot go to the third stage? No, it actually is not linear. So that's why it's like being in the moment and concentrating and just enjoying is important instead of
So,
like,
so
oh, how do I
imagine
look?
if you are at stage 2, suddenly you thought of, oh, my laundry is not done, then you go
Exactly.
back straight.
Exactly. Then you're like, oh, okay, go back to, But it happens. Not that it doesn't happen, but yeah, very
Okay,
normal.
so I heard that there's many types of orgasm for a woman. So what are the types of orgasm?
Yeah, so like the ones that's common is clitoral orgasm and vaginal orgasm. So clitoral is
Okay.
when you touch a clitoris, vaginal is when insertion, penetration. There's also G spot stimulation, a G spot orgasm, the cervical orgasm, breast and nipple. Sometimes people can have an orgasm just by touching or brushing their nipples or their breasts, massaging. There's also mixed orgasm. So mixed orgasm is when you have both, like your clitoral and also vaginal orgasm happening at the same time, and it's just double the orgasm. It's really intense. And then you also have multiple orgasms that you brought up as well. And multiple orgasm is basically in one orgasm session, you have waves of like pleasure. So it's like orgasm and orgasm and orgasm again. And that feels really amazing. And sometimes it can be very big type of orgasm during multiple orgasm, or sometimes it can just be very small type of orgasm. It's like a burst within your body.
And I think a lot of women, when you're not used, you don't know how all these orgasms feel. You might have orgasm, but and not knowing it, right? Because you didn't recognize that feeling, and because this orgasm, it feels different. Like when you say breast orgasm, and cervical orgasm, and this clitoris orgasm, it actually feels a little different. So I think sometimes women don't know how to recognize that because they are not present. They are not present. So you need to learn to be present and like in tune with your sensation, right? So you must be like a meditation kind of thing, like, you must understand all this, how this feels. So I also realized some women tell me that they have never had orgasm. I say, how about when you play with your toys? I mean, clitoris orgasm is much more easier to achieve, and by recognizing that particular orgasm, then you might be able to start recognizing the other orgasm. Because if
Yeah.
you're always not present, I don't think you can recognize that sensation.
Yeah, I think it's also about practicing. So like, so we are capable of having orgasm on those different types of orgasm. But I think why a lot of people go back to clitoral orgasm, for example, stimulation, is because they've already practiced this so much, they've already perfected. So that's why it's more intense. It
Mhm.
intensifies. I think like different parts, exactly what you said, different parts of our body, the orgasm feels different. So if we were to kind of practice, you know, if you want to focus on, like, for example, nipple orgasm, so if you just kind of practice nipple orgasm and just, you know, do it over and over again, it actually will get intensified. So it's just building that memory muscle for you to, for your body to remember how it feels like. So
yeah, muscle memory.
yeah,
So
yeah, muscle memory, yeah.
okay, so there's another thing is, can actually women squirt? It's called squirt, right?
Yeah, squirt. Yeah, there's this like huge, but you know, I think because thank you to pornography, there's this huge thing about like squirting, that if
Yeah.
you can't squirt, it means there's something wrong with your body, or if your partner can't, if you can't make your partner squirt, there's something wrong with you and your skills. And the thing is, not all women can squirt. Of course, you can sort of like teach yourself or teach your body to squirt, but it's not all women. And also, like, squirting comes in different levels. It's not always the pornography type squirting. That sometimes squirting can be just something really small, or something, you know, make the bed wet. It doesn't have to be like, you know, the waterfall and everything. So yeah, not necessarily. Some can squirt, some can't squirt, but it shouldn't be the main focus. I think at the end of the day, our focus is just to make everybody feel good, whether it be whether we have orgasm or not. It's just about feeling good.
So we have 10 more minutes. I think we should actually talk a little bit about vulva health. I think, you know, especially we women, this intimate area is a very fragile ecosystem, right? So a lot of us, if you don't know how to take good care of it, easily you get infections, bacterial infections, yeast infections, and etc. So yeah, so let's talk a little bit about vulva health.
Yeah. So like when it comes to vulva health, I think like yeah, like what you said, it's an ecosystem. It's very important for us to preserve the ecosystem. And so I think one way is to keep it dry. To keep it dry, but not too dry that it actually sucks in all of the good sort of discharge. So what I've learned is that I've stopped wearing panty liners. Personally, for me, I've stopped wearing panty liners. I only wear panty liners when I have sort of like a heavy discharge before and after period. And also, I try to go commando. I try not to wear underwear when I'm sleeping, just sort of to air it out. And what I find out is that because I've always had issues with dry labia, so my labia becomes really dry and it's just really uncomfortable, and I get really insecure. And I also like shave, right? So like
I
all
have
of
a
that.
product to send to you.
Yeah, so I want to talk to you about that because I was dry.
I will send to you immediately.
Yeah.
So okay, when we talk about vulva health, I think many years ago I was also looking at this intimate range, right? So it's really difficult to find a good intimate range product. It's because there is not many scientists or company who do research on this intimate area. So I think there is a lot who do on skin, on hair, but not many company actually do on intimate area. That is why there's not much good products available in the market. That's one. So number two, these intimate area are very fragile, right? So it's like if you use skincare, not many people will have sensitive, but if you use the wrong intimate care, basically it's easily you will get irritation, you will get infection and things like that. So when I discovered this product from France, I was like, oh my God, this product is so good. So I think, you know, when it comes to the vulva and vagina health, of course, the outer area, we need to clean it in a way, the right pH, you know, not harsh ingredients, so that it doesn't affect the ecosystem. And we never wash the vagina, which is the internal part, right? We never wash the vagina because that ecosystem is super fragile and actually self-clean. So a lot of people who do dodging and things like that, actually it will mess up the whole ecosystem. So you don't wash inside the vagina. So we have a few products. Of course, the cleanser is the basic one. But we have moisturizer, like you said, when you have like a dry vulva, this is a super good. And sometimes, you know, because there's so much of friction when we walk and we sit and things like that, it might also cause irritation. And of course, sometimes because of stress, because of unhealthy eating, hormonal changes, it might also cause our vagina to be too dry. When it's too dry, you might have irritation, itchiness. Like when it's itchy, it really feels uncomfortable, right? And like post-sex, sometimes when we have sex or even have sex too often, that might cause a little bit of wear and tear, and you might have swollen issue, you might have irritation issue, and all of these we have the solution. So I will going to send you a set of this product, and I want you to use it. And I can tell you, so far I would think I have like 100% satisfaction. I have not have any client who come back to me saying that they are not happy with this product, like they are like super happy with this product. So I need to send this to you almost immediately.
Yeah,
So
I need to try it. Yes.
Yeah. So I think another thing that we will also want to talk is the pelvic floor muscle. I think a lot of times, especially women after pregnancy, we have very weak pelvic floor muscle, where a lot of people will have this urine incontinence. When they cough, when they laugh, when they jump, they tend to have leakage. And imagine if we women, how can we live confidently if we were to pee a little when we laugh? Right? So it's like you're having a good time. When you laugh too hard, then you pee a little. It's like it really affects your self-esteem and confidence, and you start wondering, hey, do I smell? Or it can be also very embarrassing. Like I have one client, after 3 kids, one day she was walking on a shopping complex and she had a very hard sneeze, right? Sneeze very hard, and she's not having a leakage. She's like pee on her pants. So these are actually problem that women have that we don't talk enough, right? So strengthening the pelvic floor muscle is really important. Do your Kegels. I think Kegels is not talked enough. Like after birth, before birth, any age, when you're free, you're sitting, you're waiting, you're standing, do your Kegels. Okay. So if you are lazy to do your Kegels, come to our clinic, because we have this Kegel chair where you sit on the Kegel chair for 28 minutes. Is equivalent to 12,000 times of Kegel exercise.
Wow.
And I can tell you, and Jasmine, you need to come and sit on this chair.
Yes.
And to me, it's like if you sit on this chair today, and let's say you have sex that night, there's 2 things you will feel. I feel a bit different. One is you achieve orgasm easier. Because when you have strong pelvic floor muscle, when you have orgasm, it's all about contraction, right? So when your pelvic floor muscle is strong, you have better contraction. That is why you will have better orgasm. I cannot promise multiple orgasm, but if you are already having orgasm, I would think easily you can get multiple orgasms.
Right, it intensifies the orgasms too.
Yes. And of course, if your pelvic floor muscle is strong, your vaginal muscle is strong, you can also have better grip, when you are having sex with your partner. So we are saying that if you have very strong vaginal muscle, you basically can milk your partner's penis.
Okay, sign me up. I'm sold already.
So you need to like sit and you know that, okay, I have a scheduled sex tonight. Let's come and try the chair and see what happens tonight.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm like, the moment you say like milking, I'm like sold. Feeling good within my body, sold.
Okay, so I think, so thank you so much, Jasmine. Like today, I have so much fun talking about female pleasure. I think we are really not talking enough. And we, again, talking about female clitoris, we have double the pleasure what men will have. But, men is like talking about it every day and we are not talking it enough. And the orgasm gap is so huge. So I hope that at least every woman is able to orgasm during sex, like once at least, right? Like how 95% of men are actually achieving orgasm. I think we should be able to do that as well. So thank you so much, Jasmine. Any final say before we end today's Facebook Live?
No, I think it's just thank you so much for everybody for watching, and I hope we learn something new from this session. It's such an important session. Thank you so much, Yann, for having me and Beauty and Co as well, and have a good evening.
Okay, thank you everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.